So, the title of my presentation is called The Cost of Having a Celebration. So, a little background information on the article that I did my analysis on. The article title was called Raising a Glass of Champagne Will Get More Expensive Under Tariff Plan. The author of this article was Michael Wilner McClatchy, who he was a member of the Washington Bureau, where he published this article on the Reading Eagle. So, the overall purpose of the article was to highlight the potential disastrous impact the high tariff plan that the President Trump administration was planning on placing on champagne and other French imports, and how the tariff would have an effect on many Americans. So, some key terms that I thought were really important to understand before going through the rest of the presentation was luxury versus necessity and tariff. So, luxury versus necessity basically means when a person's income rises, a person is more inclined to spend money on luxury products, and the demand goes up when the income goes up for a person. So, basically, vice versa with items that aren't really considered luxury items. But in this case, champagne is considered a luxury item. So the more money that a person has, they're going to be more inclined to buy the luxury champagne. So a tariff is a tax that is to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. It requires those who are importing the products to pay the tax to the United States government, and also the consumers pay this tax too, because when there's a higher tax on an import coming into the United States, the prices are going to rise for the products that are already sold in the United States. So that causes the consumers to have to pay a higher price for that product that they're wanting to buy. So, what a tariff accomplishes, it pretty much is used to restrict imports by increasing the price of goods and services that are purchased from another country by making them less attractive to domestic consumers. It basically raises the government revenue, and it also protects domestic industries from foreign competition. So, an effect that you would see with this kind of a tariff would be, like I said before, prices would rise for the champagnes that are already produced and manufactured in the United States. Employment level will fall, and the overall availability of the champagne will also fall. So, the first point that I thought was important to understand from the article was that the Trump administration is preparing to raise tariffs on an array of French imports that might result in a 100% tax increase. That is a direct result from a pending digital tax that was imposed by Paris. So basically, the Trump administration in the first place wanted to combat the French president for his idea for placing this digital tax on US businesses. So, big companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and other large businesses place their headquarters in European capitals where there are much lower tax paying areas. So, basically, the French president wanted to tax these businesses, and President Trump wanted to directly hit back the French economy by placing this tax on various imports into the United States. So, overall, the effects of this tariff would have 88,000 American jobs lost, 370 different family owned businesses that sell the various champagnes, cheeses, and wines in the United States will be affected, and over 3,000 locations across the United States will also be affected. So it's important to understand that these businesses overall is what economically supports many of these people. So when you take away their source of income or drastically change how they're going to import their products, they're going to see a drastic negative effect on their overall business. The second point I thought was really important from the article, that there are many other countries that local businesses have looked into, but those other countries aren't necessarily able to keep up with the demand to be an appropriate substitute for these businesses. American business owner Kenny, for example, who is vice president of Uncorked Wines, believes that his business, instead of a 15% increase in sales, he will see a 15% downturn. We are potentially erasing any gains next year, possibly going backwards, and that would limit or reverse our decision to hire more people. So basically, what Kenny is saying is that he looked into other countries like Africa and Australia, and their supply of champagnes and wines won't be able to keep up with the demand that the United States has for these products. So basically, if businesses can't find an appropriate substitute to import these products, they won't be able to hire more people, they'll have to lay off people, and they'll significantly have to change the way they sell their products. So they could raise their prices to help combat the lack of products that are coming in, but that also coincides with the fact that they might not be able to make enough revenue to support themselves fully. And the third point I thought was the most important takeaway was that US trade representatives imposed a 25% tariff on select wines from Spain, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, but this originally excluded sparkling varieties and wines with over 14% alcohol percent. And the next round of increased tariffs will see a total of 2.4 billion in annual French imports, which this will include not only champagnes and wines and cheeses, but it'll include cosmetics, handbags, and other different products. So these graphs, I thought, explained really well how the impact the tariffs would have on consumers. As stated by Bolello in the article, we're talking about a trade with 88,000 American jobs, like I said before, and over 370 family owned businesses and 3 different locations nationwide. So these tariffs would decrease the amount of workers, which is the supply, and it would also decrease the amount of businesses needed, which impacts the demand on the workers. The first critique that I had for the article was, overall, I still think that people will still buy the champagne even if the prices are higher. The article kind of took a negative connotation and kind of leaned toward the side where if President Trump increased these taxes, that people wouldn't, pay the prices for the champagne. But I think that this is a type of luxury product that even if the prices are higher, people are still going to spend the money to buy it because it's not necessarily a necessity. It's more something that you buy it when you need to buy it. The second critique that I had was actually in support of the article because, in a sense, I do believe whether American businesses seek to import wines and other products from different countries to support their consumers, I think the demand for the products will greatly outnumber the supply. And the third critique I have was, I do believe that policymakers across the country as well as the world tend to not foresee the impact of various taxes and tariffs and the policies will have on smaller businesses. And without these careful considerations, many Americans will not be able to economically grow, which in the end will hinder the American economy as a whole. So I think while there are good intentions and bad intentions with the tariff policy, I think as a whole, no policy is going to completely help or hinder the whole entire American population as a whole. So my overall opinion that emerged from the article was that Many Americans are frustrated with the tariff proposal, and a lot of American jobs are going to change due to this. And I actually did change the way that I thought prior to reading the article. I believe that the article only kind of illuminated on the negative effects of the tariff, like I said before. And although it's important to understand both sides, I think in most cases, news articles kind of sway towards one side or the other. And this article also allowed me to understand how policies as a whole will affect Americans as well as various different businesses and how it won't affect other businesses. And for further reading, if you want to kind of go a little deeper into what the article really said, there is a link at the end of my presentation.